Hello everyone, my name is Steven and welcome to Storytime. Today we're going to be reading some malicious compliance stories, tales where following the rules lead to some just desserts. And let me just say, if you're not already subscribed to Storytime, please consider doing so. But with that being said, let's sit back, relax, and listen to some captivating Reddit stories. Software Educator to Doc. Yes sir, whatever you say. So I am a registered nurse that travels the country teaching electronic medical records to hospitals and clinics. I've met my fair share of fantastic doctors, and a few smile but fantasize about punching in the face doctors. This one is the latter. I'm at a specialty clinic showing how to document ambulatory visits in their new software. Overall, great staff and doctors. Things are going smoothly, until Dr. A-hole shows up with his staff. His staff are great. The workflows for their end are working well. I introduce myself to Doc Hole and am immediately given attitude about the software. It's too cumbersome, it's stupid, designed poorly, etc. I let him chew on my butt for a while. I've got plenty of fat down there and can stand to lose a bit anyway. When he winds down, I say, okay, well, let's see what we can do to make it work for you. He then goes into his first patient's room for a few minutes and I pull up that patient to get ready. So this software streamlines the billing process. Each click has a purpose and you can see at a glance what the bill will be and what you lack in documentation to bill a higher level, for accuracy, not to charge more. He comes out and I start to show him the flow he needs to follow to get his levels. I get about half a sentence out when he interrupts that's stupid and proceeds to start chewing my butt up and down again. Says he is going to dictate. Show him how to do that. The thing is that the software doesn't read dictation, so he won't get his bill built automatically, which is a huge reason they purchased the software. I try to reinforce that and he basically tells me to shut up and walks away to complain about me and the software to someone on the phone. So I retreat to the staff and help them for a while. Come to find out he skipped all the classes and hadn't gotten any training. The doctor comes back and rips me a new one for not being available because I was with the staff. I get up and he pulls up the patient on his iPad. Show me where to dictate. Yes sir, whatever you say. You can dictate exams here, and you can dictate your plans here. He proceeds to do that for a patient but decides it's too much and goes back to paper and will dictate at the end of the day. So I help staff the rest of the day, alert my boss to the issue in his admin. The end of the day comes and he starts dictating everything, finalized his notes, and continues to idiot to me about how crappy the system is. Okay, that's fine. I just smile. Because every single note he sends out either doesn't have enough to create a bill or only produces a 9212, which pays a lot less than the 214s he would have gotten if he let me show him the proper way. Cue 3 days later. I hear through the grapevine he's yelled the other trainers out and they backed off and let him have his way as well. So the fallout. Billing finally catches up and most of his PTs got charged way less than they should have been and many of his claims couldn't even be submitted. Last I heard he got reamed and was sitting with another doctor and had to be shown how to document. We were all gone from the site and not available to train. So I was quite happy that his attitude caused him to lose money, and now time. And his patients got a discounted office visit. He tried complaining about us, but we all know how to document to cover our arrears for non-compliant trainees. My butt is fine, despite his chewing it out, and he can kiss it for all I care. From what I've heard, the medical field is a place where you're constantly having to learn new stuff. So as a doctor, he should have been capable of sitting down and learning from the trainer how this software works for his profession. Just another person that just tries to get too stuck in their ways and, I gotta learn something? I don't want to do that. Get that out of my face. It led to some serious issues, so I guess one way or another he was going to have to learn somehow. He just learned the hard way. I don't need a wig? If you say so. I started cosplaying at the tender age of 15. I was, still am really, a cool 5'3". So who better to cosplay than one Edward Elric for my first go at it? My parents, like most others, had no idea what cosplay was, but it wasn't illegal or dangerous, so they weren't about to stop me. Until they saw the price tag. For those unfamiliar, cosplay is a pricey hobby. I want to say that the costume plus wig plus boots I wanted to get would have run me around $200. I had the money and was going to pay, but my parents refused to let me. They would allow me to get the costume, but not the boots or the wig. I was able to modify a pair of boots I owned to work, but their solution to the lack of wig was, well, I had long, light brown hair at the time. My parents' solution was to braid my hair and spray dye it yellow using cheap spray dye from the party store. I don't know if any of you have used this stuff, but whatever brand my mom bought dried into a powder which really didn't like sticking to hair, but loved sticking to fabric. My dad is a bit of a helicopter parent, so he wasn't about to let me go to a convention in Boston alone. He drove me there and back that day. Something else about my dad is that he has a real bug up his butt about my posture, constantly telling me to sit up straight whenever I was sitting down. His car had fabric seating. Cue malicious compliance. I sat straight as a board, head against the headrest, back against the seat, the whole way home. Wanted to preserve what little color managed to stay on for the con on the way there. To this day, if you look carefully, there's yellow in the back seat of that car. I was allowed to buy a wig the next year. I don't know why they were so insistent on not getting the wig. Maybe they figured, they wouldn't use it as much, just like a one-time thing, so maybe it wasn't, I don't know. It just seems like an odd thing to me that they were so insistent on not getting a wig. But their insistence on spray dye bit them in the butt, and OP was then allowed to get a wig, so everything worked out in the end. I'll write your essay, but I'm gonna write it my way. In middle school, there was a system where every month in each class subject, students would have to write an essay on a given prompt. Even math classes. We wrote about 5 essays a month. I like to write and did so often in my spare time. I did not like writing stupid 3-page essays along the lines of what is your morning routine and talk about your favorite foods. These essays were kind of killing my passion for writing. Now that I'm older, I think they gave us easier prompts to help boost their stats. Easy essay equals more A's. But at the time, it was just tedious. I asked my social studies teacher if we could get more interesting prompts, and he told me that he has to pick the prompts from a list the school provided, and he was trying his best to find interesting ones. He suggested trying to make it as interesting as possible for myself, but that I had to answer the prompt. Oh, I'll answer the prompts alright. Our next essay was to write a short story with the following instructions. Sergio is looking forward to a fun-filled summer vacation until something unexpected changes his plans. Man, I wish I still had the story I wrote because it was beautiful. I wrote a story from the perspective of Sergio's mother. She was sitting on the curb outside of her house, police all around her, and Sergio lay dead in the street. He had been struck by a drunk driver. I'm telling you, it was dark. If I were to write it again today, I think I'd make the mom his killer for some added splash. But honestly, it's probably a good thing I hadn't written that in 8th grade. I'd probably have landed myself in counseling. My teacher gave me an A for the assignment because, I followed the prompt and wrote well. Nothing changed, but at least I got a little thrill from my malicious compliance. Hey, it's called creative writing for a reason. They gave you a simple prompt and you took it and made it into something way bigger than it was. It's your own masterpiece in your own right. And good on the teacher for giving you an A and not questioning you about it and doing some counter grade F thing just because it's a dark essay. No students in the warming kitchen. Okay. I teach at a college and we were recently moved into the new building. It is essentially a gym complete with a swimming pool, and the college opened it up to the public. One of the rooms is a warming kitchen. It has a microwave and toaster oven. Since this building opened, they changed the hours of the cafeteria. It now closes just before my class starts. This leaves no place for my students to get food. It's a 4.5-hour class. My class is an evening class when almost no one is around, so my students have been using it as well. The basic rule is just clean up after yourself. Well, the lifeguards for the pool have decided it is their break room. Last semester there were no issues. Now there's one Karen in particular that chases students out. After she gave me the 3rd degree as to who I was, she chased 2 of my students out. Cue malicious compliance. I told my students to stand in the doorway and give me their food to warm up. I went to them, carried the food to the microwave, and heated it up for them. Then walked back to them and gave it to them. I could see the Karen fuming, so I simply said, "If you have a problem, we can discuss it with the dean. And at the same time, we can discuss your disrespectful attitude towards a professor." She now leaves the room when I come in. Good on OP for helping out when these kids need food or can't get food in this 4-hour time span, and people are trying to prevent them from being able to get food. It's kind teachers like OP that make people remember classes fondly. Bink was worried about how I dressed. A few years back, I was working for a local community bank in the loan processing department. The bank was under a consent order from the FDIC due to some loans that had gone bad and had left the bank with insufficient assets on hand. Of course, they didn't do much with any customer interaction, but company policy for the guys was to have dress pants, button-up shirt, and a tie. The department was also located in the basement of the building, so I was visible by the customers 4 times a day at the most, punching in and out of the day for lunch. Apparently, at some point during one of those visits, the executive VP saw me walking to punch in or out, and from her office, being she rarely walked out of it, noticed my shirt had wrinkles in it from 30 to 40 feet away. She contacts my manager, a stereotypical butt kisser who would never say anything other than yes to his boss, and loved to make his employees a living heck, and he jumped at the opportunity to lower the employee morale if at all possible. He walks into the room where the 3 of us are working and informed me that my shirt was too wrinkly and that it needed to be dealt with. Now, I'm lazy when it comes to my clothes, so anything that I can't hang up out of the dryer and have wrinkle-free doesn't make it into the wardrobe. I check with my coworkers who are standing beside me and are unable to find any of the wrinkles that everyone seems to be so sure is causing the bank to fail. The next day, I had no choice but to deal with the problem as I didn't want to be responsible for the bank failing. After all, my manager and the executive team were doing a great job of that on their own. So I did what I felt was appropriate. I broke out my suit, was sure that everything was clean and wrinkle-free, and headed off to work. I walked past my boss's desk just outside of the room we worked in, and he looks up and stares for a second. He then asks what I was so dressed up for, and I let him know that I didn't want to be talked to about my wrinkles again. He gives me a disappointed look as if I had missed the point of the conversation the day before, and I walked into the office. I made a point of walking into the lobby of the bank in full view of the executive VP multiple times that day to be sure that I was noticed, as I wanted to make as big of a point as I could. Not surprisingly, I put myself on the unofficial hit list of the bank. Everything I did was monitored. Emails, movement, loan files. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if the boss had a log of my bathroom breaks. I spent about 2 months of being treated like that and left. And about 2 months after, the bank was sold and the executive team, including my boss, got canned as part of the deal. Here's another case of overmanagement. Even if the shirt was remotely wrinkly, I don't think it would really be an issue. If I walked into a bank and I saw a worker that had a slightly wrinkly shirt, I wouldn't even think anything of it. Like, why does that matter to me? So good on OP for dressing to the nines, walking in, and showing them how it's done. Do it the way I tell you or get points off. My English teacher is very uptight with her grading and takes it very seriously. She sometimes takes points off for things like grammar on a test about a novel. Basically, a bunch of normally A students have B's and C's. So on to the meat of the story. Yesterday, we were assigned a research project where we research a controversial topic and make a slideshow or movie using Picture Story 3. In our notes, we needed 3 articles annotated, and notes on a separate sheet including 2 quotes for each article and 2 paraphrased facts each. I decided, since she gives low grades to slackers, that I'll do some extra work. Instead of paraphrasing with bullet points, it said nothing about bullet points on the rubric. I wrote full sentences in a mini paragraph form, thinking it would boost my grade. So at the end of class, I hand her my papers and she sorts through to grade. I knew I messed up when I saw her get a grin and look at me with these malicious eyes. She then says to me that I formatted my page wrong, so I got half of the entire 20-point assignment wrong, even though formatting was only 5% of the grade, and gave me an F all because I didn't do a bulleted list. She then says, "Do it the way I tell you or get points off." She said this, which filled me with anger as sparks went off in my mind for revenge. I knew exactly how I was going to do it as well. The next day, we were working on citations and making our bibliography papers, and I made sure to follow the rubric word for word. For the sake of time, I will tell you about the two biggest examples. First off, she said to leave 2 spaces between each source. So instead of pressing enter twice for 2 lines of space, I pressed space twice. Then she said to title it Works Cited. I did these things exactly how she vaguely wrote her rubric. I mean, she could not give points off for me following the rubric because I did as she said. I printed the paper following her MLA format, and as she came around the computer lab room, I got nervous and excited at the same time, but mostly anxious. She got to me and I was almost laughing, but I kept my cool and she turned to me and said, "What did I say to you yesterday?" In return, I told her, "I did what you said." She returned with a snarky attitude saying how she never said to put brackets on the title and the spaces needed to be too tall. I handed her that same grin back and said to her face that she put it on the rubric and I did as she said. You could see it in her face that she was mad and she was searching for a way to get me in trouble, but she could not. I got an A+ on that assignment, but I have to worry now about her being on my back. What did I take out of this? Learn how your teacher or instructor does their thing and do it how they want it. Another thing is that revenge is great, but it'll bite your back. The revenge here was pretty satisfying, going and literally following the rubric word for word, but I maybe would have liked to have seen a little bit more parent involvement or even like supervisor involvement as far as an administrator, a principal, a dean, whatever it may be. This teacher is on her high horse and needed to be knocked a few pegs down. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for listening to and watching the Storytime channel. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing and leave any feedback in the comments below. Thank you all again for watching and listening to the Storytime channel.